saying men should be dangerous. By dangerous, that implies I should be ready to threaten someone, to hurt somebody.
No, you should be capable of it. There's nothing to you otherwise.
Welcome to the Dangerous Man Podcast, where we talk about how to become a better man, take responsibility for our mission, create value for others, and the many failures and lessons we've learned along the way. Stay dangerous. Welcome back to another episode of the Dangerous Man Podcast. This is your host, John Kostohris, joined by co-host
Adam Thooft. What's up?
Well, bright and early, good morning on this beautiful day. Yesterday was sunshine, but with no rainbows, but basically sunshine and rainbows. It was a pretty beautiful day yesterday.
Oh yeah.
And how you doing today, Adam? How you doing there?
I'm ready to rumble. That's what's up.
That's
You
good.
know? Yeah.
I love your cloak that you wore this morning.
That's literally just a blanket.
I think it's funny how my concept of a lap blanket is different than your concept of a lap blanket, because every time you put a blanket on, you drape it on your shoulders and sit down, and I put it on my lap. I'm like, is being taller than 5'10", like, do you have like an imbalance of like warmth in your upper body extremities?
I think it might just be that if I warm my torso more, my legs get more warmth anyway. Or my legs are more okay being slightly cooler right now. I'm not really sure, but this is what feels good. So that's what I'm rolling with. That's
funny, man. I'm going to be honest. That reminds me of when I was doing some camping, some through hiking, some backpacking. And I have this weird thing where when I get in the sleeping bag, I just get like, I use a quilt when I camp, which is basically a sleeping bag without a hood, and it doesn't zip all the way enclosed. It's like you like clip it under you, or you could unclip it and make it like a blanket with like, it basically is what a quilt is. Anyways, you use it when you're in a tent camping, but I always get, I don't really know what it's called. I don't really know if it's a thing, but I've just invented the term for myself, sweaty crotch syndrome. Whereas I've been hiking all day and my body temperature is super high, and I crawl into my sleeping bag to stay warm and go to bed so I can get up and go hiking the next day on my trip. And I just like, it's like, oh, it's designed to keep you warm, but it's not designed to get ventilation to the place you need it most as a man, which is
your balls.
Yeah. So I had to be creative with ways to keep that area cool while keeping the rest of my body warm. And anyways, that's a story for another time. But I will say, sometimes when I have a lap blanket on, I'm like, time to take. I'll let it cover like part of my legs, and I'll have to make like an air vent for my crotch. And so Adam will see me spread my legs sometimes and just
I just don't
get ventilation.
That's why I don't have a lap blanket, because I just need all the ventilation.
Do you also have sweaty crotch syndrome?
I think I do. But I don't know if I notice it as much.
Yeah. Okay. But we didn't gather all of you here on this fine day.
Talk about sweaty balls.
No. So why don't I want to share basically, do you struggle to connect with people? And now that you've learned some basics for storytelling and the importance of it, and maybe a couple of things you can look into, do further reading from our last couple episodes, do you want to, I don't know, do you ever find, Adam, that you have a hard time like just rambling on people? Or
oh yeah, there's sometimes it's like, where am I going with this again? I don't remember. I'm just kind of ranting and processing. Granted, like a lot of time I'll process like out loud.
Yeah,
some people call it external processing. I think there's some of it's external processing, some of it's just like, I didn't actually think this through.
Sure.
But there's sometimes where it's like, maybe I should ask a question instead of just ranting.
That is an interesting thought there. And let's talk more about that. So questions are pretty awesome for a lot of reasons. But yeah, I mean, if you ever feel like you're talking a lot in a conversation, it's very one-sided, or they're talking a lot, there's a secret to tossing the two-way street into a conversation, which is known as a question, or in the common tongue, question. So I've actually been doing a little bit of light reading, and by light I mean I read this book like a couple months ago, and I've been kind of digging into it again. It's a good one on the bookshelf, but we actually had mentioned a guy named John C. Maxwell before, but he is a #1 New York Times best-selling author for a lot of books. He's got a lot of books on successful leadership, mostly around the leadership topic, and he had built one of the largest churches in the United States for a time as a pastor, and then he moved on into some other business ventures and mostly leadership development. And now he's like in his 70s, and like he's the guy I think we mentioned on an episode, Adam, where he basically makes like $20,000 to $70,000 per minute speaking.
Yeah. So if he has a 10-minute talk, you're paying him like 200 to 700 grand.
Yeah,
Depending on the topic, I'm assuming.
Because he has so much wisdom and experience that literally the way that he does what he does and that you learn what he knows is that you read from him and then you listen to him speak. And that's the way he communicates everything he's known and how he mentors and teaches. But just a phenomenally inspiring man who's written one of the best books I read by him that really influenced me was it's called Intentional Living, and by John C. Maxwell. And but that's a different book. But man, what a great guy and a thought leader of our time. And basically what he talks about in this book called Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. Yeah, good leaders ask great questions. And this is a peculiar book. It's loaded with it's a book about question leading, asking and how to be a better leader and how to connect better with people. And it's just like loaded with tons and tons and tons of questions and tons of frameworks, and here's 10 steps to do this better and 10 steps to do that better, and 10 like I think he wrote like a gazillion blogs or YouTube video tutorials into one book. And we're not going to get into all that, but I did want to kind of introduce the idea of questions and how they complement stories and communication as a whole. But he essentially says questions unlock wisdom from others, and they unlock answers. Kind of the two main things we want to kind of get into a little bit here. Wisdom and unlock wisdom and answers. And so kind of what's the value of a question, right? Like, why should I care? Why is this important to me? How can it help me? And he gives a few rubrics here of the value of asking questions. And he basically says you only get answers to the questions you ask. And he kind of highlights two things. One of them being a profound question versus an unprofound question, or, asking something that's, without the profoundness of it. And basically the quality of your questions really has a direct, it equals quality of question equals quality of your answers. And there's a direct relationship. Like the better question that I can ask, I'm able to gain better insight. And so that's what he means by profound or unprofound. So, it's kind of like, some of the examples he gives in the book here are, here's without profound questions. You'd get shallow answers, lack of confidence, poor decision-making, live in mental fog, work on low priorities, immature processing. And when you ask profound questions, it allows you to have profound answers, life confidence, wise decision-making, crystal clear focus in life, focused on high priorities, and mature processing ability.
So it basically fixes almost everything.
Yep. So I thought it'd be kind of important.
So get good at asking and answering questions and
oh my gosh,
fix most of your problems.
And that's where it actually flows right into his second point, which is questions unlock and open doors that otherwise remain closed. And, basically I guess Thomas Watson had said the ability to ask the right question is more than half of the battle of finding the answer. And this is actually a skill that we can develop that helps us to, like, you can almost, just like writing or, anything in life, basketball, whatever, it's a skill. And it can come as an intuition, something you can fire from the hip with better accuracy. And it's like, I think the issue that I had as a kid was, I had no idea what questions to ask people. And I'd had certain friends that just seemed to have an intuition of asking good questions and just provoking really good conversation. And I always kind of sucked at that. And I was like, man, I want to be able to do that. And it's cool kind of digging into this more because I feel a lot less like despair there, because it's just like, okay, I'm able to study and these guys and these mentors and really, and they give a lot of examples of good questions. I'm going to just flow through a couple more things here and then we can kind of throw it into, but he says, basically, why does it unlock doors that would remain closed? And he's like, well, your ability to problem solve. If I can ask the right question, then I can solve the right problems. I can understand how to solve problems. So basically what he's saying is, like, why problem solve? Here's a couple examples of problem solving questions. Why do we have this problem? How do we solve this problem? What specific steps must we take to solve this problem? And so as a leader, if you're leading a team, if you're working with your family, if you're just trying to overcome challenges in your own life, you can actually start the process of thinking and problem solving by prompting these questions and answering them. So it's really powerful. But are you getting the power in this? Are you seeing how this can start helping you just have more clarity in your getting answers and solving problems? But in the third thing I want to highlight is he talks about questions are the most effective means of connecting with people. And he tells this story of when he's playing golf. And there's a bunch of professional golfers that he's with, and then there's a few amateur golfers that he's with. And he's golfing with them all. And this is John C. Maxwell, the author. And it's funny because he says, well, the whole time we were talking and chatting and golfing, as one does when you golf. But he was saying, like, they never once asked me about any advice on golf. And I was like, and he was like, that makes a lot of sense because I am an amateur. But I can guarantee they were asking me a lot of questions about leadership. Because
that's what he's an expert on.
Yeah. And so it's like sometimes people just ask the wrong questions or to the wrong people and you're going to get the wrong answers. And so some of it too was just like having that, you know what I mean? Just like being able to ask the right question to the right people has so much value. But he was just, he was talking about how they were just able to connect. And, I don't know. I don't know what you think about that, Adam, but there is something pretty profound about just like, I think we were actually alluding to this when we just started initially talking when we first started the podcast, but it was like, I could just ramble. But, if I ask a question, then it invites the other person in. Yeah. Or, I think one quote that was super interesting was, basically, let's see here. I think it was really good. Oh, anyways, one of the guy was essentially saying, like, in the book, there was this quote of a guy who said, the reason I do so well in life is because I am ignorant and I put myself at the feet of people asking them questions to understand them, basically. It's like I make myself ignorant of others so that I have to ask questions to understand them better.
Yeah, there's like a certain amount of, you're saying, oh, I might be really intelligent, but right now I'm going to like not assume that I'm more intelligent than you. And I'm going to assume that, hey, you have stuff that I don't know that you know better than I do. So it's kind of like, there's something like humble about that almost in a way, which is very interesting. But
what do you mean by humble?
I mean, like, I guess it's like you're not selfish in that way. Like, it's kind of like what we were talking about in the last podcast with the art of dealing with people. You're kind of focused more on trying to like understand the other person, and that's kind of helping them like feel approved, feel accepted. So it kind of like helps them feel, kind of boost their self-worth. And I think if you're boosting someone's self-worth, they're more likely to kind of open up to you and actually give good answers to your questions. Kind of another thing that was talking about in that book, which is the art of dealing with people, which is what we talked about on the last episode. Go check it out. Is that he talks about small talk, because small talk is usually like the start of the conversation. And a lot of conversation is like talking about something that we have in common. And sometimes when you're just approaching someone you don't know, you're like, what do we have in common? And that's why like the general, kind of stereotypical small talk question is, how's the weather? Because the weather is kind of like what we all have in common.
Yeah.
Because we're all people on Earth that can see outside. So we all know what the weather's like. But this reminds me of a time when I was driving some shuttle to the airport and back. And I actually, I small talk people all of the time, mostly because it helps you get more tips. But also, I just enjoy hearing people's stories and where they're from. Also because they're from all over the place. So it's like, there's something interesting that everyone like has, and I just kind of want to learn about it. I honestly start off like every conversation with like the same question, and it is the easiest question to ask because I'm picking them up from the airport, which means they were on a plane from somewhere.
Relevance, huh?
So I just asked, where are you flying in from?
Uh-huh.
And then there's
gets the flow going.
And it's the easiest question to answer because it's like a one-word answer
coming in
of a
from
city.
Chicago.
Yeah, I'm coming from Chicago. Oh, yeah, that's not a very long flight at all. Yeah, not too bad. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, are you in town for like work or pleasure? Oh, work. Oh, like business meeting? Oh, yeah, we're in for a conference. Oh, okay. What business?
Yeah. All of a sudden, you're learning about them.
And then they talk about their business and what
talk
their
about
role there
themselves.
is. And yeah, you get them talking about themselves. It's like, oh, this guy's actually taking interest in what I do. And because I know like a little bit about a lot of different fields of work.
Yeah.
Like there's this one group that was like a bunch of computer people. And like, I'm not like a computer nerd, but I did study computer networking for just like a little bit. So I can like, and
know some of the lingo.
My older brother is also in that world. So like I've picked up a decent amount from him. So I'm like, oh, okay. So you want to make sure that you have all the routers connected properly so that you don't drop packets. Okay. That's actually pretty low level stuff. But it's like just being like, okay, making sure you like push up. Honestly, this is like a conversation I had with somebody because obviously like when you're doing networking and controlling a bunch of computers in a company, you have to make sure you're getting all of them updated properly. But everyone else would like is told to like turn off their computers at night. So like they save power, right? But at the same time, you want to do updates when people aren't using their computers. So like sometimes you have to ask people to leave their computers on so you can do updates at the night. So it's not.
Please don't log off because I need this to update.
However,
while you are sleeping,
there's always somebody who turns off their computer anyway. Probably multiple people.
Classic. Just habit, ritual.
Yeah. So like honestly, from what I've heard, the worst part of trying to get all the computer stuff to work is human error.
You might be unaware of what human error is. Like, I've never seen that error pop up on my Windows computer.
That's because it's you.
Because you are the problem. I'm just kidding. You are the hero of your story, and only you can prevent forest fires.
Yeah. But like really, when it comes down to it, a lot of that, like a decent amount of the human error isn't too bad, unless you're like clicking on phishing emails and links and letting hackers get into the whole system and costing your company hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions.
You wonder why we have departments for this in companies.
There's an IT and cybersecurity department for a reason. because people are trying to steal your data. But that's kind of a bit of a soapbox about just me talking about computer stuff with
You
computer
had
people.
a general understanding of a lot of things in,
Yeah.
for example, the networking you've done in school.
Yeah.
So you can have, I
So
guess, what does that allow you to do in
It allows
conversation?
me to almost have more of like a slightly more in-depth conversation about computer stuff with random people that I talk to, just because I know a little bit more about it. So I can kind of press into it. And because I also know someone, namely my brother, that works in that field, it's a lot easier for me to connect with those people because of that.
Yeah, and that's a good point of being like, hey, use like, and I'm going to say this, like I've found in my life, if I have been in conversations, like especially when I did ministry for a year, which I essentially traveled the country in a 15-passenger van with a bunch of other awesome, exuberant, crazy, passionate 18, 20-year-olds. But at any rate, we would have a lot of conversations with different, students at schools we go to or with each other a lot while we were on our long road trips in the van between states and driving across the country. And, it was like, there's a lot of things I did know. And so it was easy to be like, oh yeah, I know that. And I'm interested, I'm passionate, and I can have conversation. And it almost can, and one thing can be that it leads to connection, but can also lead to like, we just are kind of too casual about it. And it just, you know what I mean? Like the other person doesn't get it. Oh yeah, I know what that is. And then they don't really get a chance to talk as much. And I'm not saying that is every case, but I think what's cool about the quote of like, hey, having some ignorance so that you're asking and learning about the other person. It's like, I've actually had conversations with a dude that was like, he fit when I was one of the families that we stayed with for like a couple nights. And this guy I was talking to, this I guess the father of this family, he was like, I think they repaired airplanes and like did all kinds of, like, it was really complicated stuff beyond just like mechanics. Like it was like engineering and stuff. And I was like, it was like way over my head, but I was like, he was like, oh, you probably don't care about this. And I was like, to be honest, I honestly don't really know anything about this, but I'm always really interested to just hear what other people's experiences are. And like everybody works different jobs or has done different things. And to me, there's so many new things I have no idea about. And so I actually am kind of curious. And I want to kind of hear you explain some of this. So, and then I would just start asking question after question. And it was like, how do you know what question to ask? It was like, well, honestly, I didn't. I just was like, I don't know what you mean by that. I'd be like, hey, like what is that? Like, what do you mean by that? Or how does that work? Or like, wow, like how long have you been doing, like some of it is like, if it's just small talk, it's like, oh, how long have you been doing that? Oh, nice. Where are you from? Oh, nice. And it's like, well, are you satisfied with your relationship? Like I am not super satisfied in my relationships when it's just a bunch of small talk. I'll be honest. If anyone knows me, I'll be like, I don't really like small talk. But everyone, Adam, you know this. I love sitting down with a glass of whiskey. And
well, more specifically, Scotch. But
Scotch whiskey is my favorite. Yes, indeed. The Scottish are the Scotlanders. They know what they're doing. And having like really good conversation with like maybe 1, 2, 3 people, 4 people, and like 5 people, and we just have a really good conversation. And what drives that is, one, you're opening up beyond just small talk about things that you care about, and more like philosophical thought. But there's also like an element of you getting to ask like good questions and great questions beyond just like, what do you do? Being like, wow, like.
Well, generally, when it comes to when you're sitting down with people like that, you already know the people relatively well, for the most part. I have had a couple of sit-down conversations where I haven't known the people as well, but then we stay up to like 3 a.m. talking, and it's like, oh. You
gain some traction there with them.
You get some traction, and you keep going, and you're like, oh, we have this shared experience that we have in common. We have this and then like kind of their oh, can I like trust you? Because I feel like everyone has kind of a trust wall that they kind of have for people, where it's like, there's a lot of information that I could share with you, but I kind of put it behind this wall because I don't know if I can trust you or not.
Sure.
And that kind of comes down the more like relatable you are to them. So it's the more similar you are to them by being able to like, oh yeah, I relate to that. Oh yeah, I relate to that. Then they're going to be like, hey, this thing that's kind of behind my trust wall that I feel like some people might like judge me for or think that I'm weird for, this person might actually relate to that thing. So maybe I'll like kind of pull down my wall a little bit so I can let that thing out. So that kind of, drops their walls or like lets their walls down kind of, is kind of some of the terms that some people use, but it's really just like they're starting to trust you more with what they're talking about. And sometimes that just happens in small talk, is you can kind of edge away at that trust, especially if you just met somebody. You can't just go like, how's your heart? To someone, hi, my name is Adam.
I don't even know what that means to me. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of intense. Healthy?
I hope.
That's that trust wall, right? Just
well, let me look at my beats per minute.
Yeah, and there's almost this element of asking some of those questions to kind of warm people up, make them feel comfortable, but make them feel like, wow, this person's actually excited and can relate to what I have to say, and I want to open up more because there's something profound and human about this. And there's a lot we could say about questions, and honestly, I will probably be coming in and out of this topic for a long time because
questions are important.
I think we have this thing we wrote on our whiteboard that it says, number 1, questions, number 2, stories equals only things that matter. And just the more life I've lived, the more people I've read, the more experts I've surrounded myself in and put myself at their feet, it just comes back down to like a lot of the things in communication, in sales, in family, and it just comes down to asking really great questions at the right times, and being able to connect with somebody and being able to tell stories. And so there's a lot to questions, but I thought I would end here just by reading off a couple of he says he's had life-changing questions. And I was like, well, okay, well, you might want to be hearing, okay, John, you're talking about this book, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. Well, what are some examples of great questions? Because I mean, we kind of could see what a lame question is.
I too want to be great.
I don't exactly. And so I thought I'd share some of John C. Maxwell's life-changing questions that a couple of them I honestly think about regularly, and I've read in some of his other books. But it basically, he was like, hey, let's revisit that idea. He said, the quality of your question equals the quality of your answer. And it can unlock a great question can unlock wisdom and answers, can help you solve problems, gain more insight, right? And these questions can prompt our own reflection too, to get those great answers that are within us.
Yeah.
To understand, to go find the answers to. And so this is one his dad asked. He said, what do you want to do with your life? I'm not going to break all these down right now, but I'm just going to share a few of these so you could kind of ponder the weight of how great of what this is. You know what I mean? Do you know you're a leader? Oh, these are good.
Hit me with them.
Do you have a plan for your personal growth? Can I help you get started in business? That would be coming from like somebody who's a mentor and successful. How can we receive regular, ongoing training from you? That was an attendee of one of his leadership conferences. What could we do to make a difference? This might be if you're a little bit older. What will you do with the second half of your life?
Really hope I'm not in the second half of my life.
I think that's interesting. Some of these are cool because each of those questions for John C. Maxwell has a story, and I was like, for the sake of time, I wasn't going to get into every single story there, but I think there's an idea behind there that there's something potent there that makes you go woof or ugh, feel it in your gut, and just like I don't know, kind of what stuck out to you from some of that, Adam. What was going through your head,
like
hearing those questions?
Do you like have a plan for your like personal success? Was that what the question was?
Yeah. What's your plan for Yeah, let me read
I
it
think
again.
I think I phrased it slightly differently, but how do you phrase it?
Oh, do you have a plan for your personal growth?
Plan for your personal growth. That's really good because
That's one of the one. Actually, that's the one question that has stuck with me.
kind of like, I think growth is like a really good word because if you use like success always is like, unless you've like
Vague.
quote unquote made it, which is like, what does that mean? That's even kind of vague. The success always kind of feels like it's kind of far out.
Yeah.
Whereas growth is the next step.
Ooh. Right. Like, wait. This is a slight trail, but I'll just read the label on the can of worms. Okay. And that is this idea of high concept that's been used in a lot of film and movies, and a lot of marketers have adapted it. But high concept is essentially, without getting into the can of worms too much, it's a simple phrase that omits a lot of detail, but it's understandable and it's inspiring. And so, a simple one would be like work harder or work smarter, not harder.
It's like that's
high
relatively
concept.
simple to understand, but what does that actually like practically look like?
Yeah.
It's a lot more complicated.
Right. And a common one in the marketing land was a high concept was eat the food, lose the weight. And so it was like, it gives you the impression I can eat kind of whatever you want, pizza,
But it's actually like
ice cream sundaes.
No, you need to eat healthy.
Well, no, this was like they were marketing a product, of course.
Okay.
So you could eat the food and still lose the weight with their product. That was the power of the high concept.
Yeah.
But anyways, the high concept is interesting because I've found you can put those types of simple, easy to understand means a lot to the audience. It's not like this ethereal, like I've heard if you want a hard answer, ask a simple question. If you want a simple answer, ask a hard question. And I have a couple of these written down in my notebook in my office. So those are something I'd want to be able to gather and read. But it was essentially you ask this longer, complicated question, and you're gonna have to, you want it to be like a no-brainer. Oh, yes or no. Otherwise, it's like, wait, what? You'll get this classic example: story problems in school.
Oh yeah.
You have to read it like 15 bajillion times, and then you still don't know what it's about, and you have to give a complex answer. So it's like, oh my gosh.
It's like, couldn't the answer just be 3?
But that's what they needed to ask a simple question that merited more reflection and like answering longer. And so it's like, do you have a personal plan for your life? Like what you could say, what is your personal plan for your life? And that would prompt a more complicated answer, which would be perfect.
Yeah.
But if it was like, if it was longer or harder than that, you'd want to be like, yes, no. And so anyways, I thought that was really helpful in the context of questions because it's like, if I put some the idea of high concept into my question, like I think he did that, like you said, growth for your growth instead of success. Or it was like growth is more palpable and more people understand that. And so it's like, I don't know. I don't have it all figured out, but as I've been reading and learning, my intuition is like, I think there's something powerful in like words people can understand and words that help bring out more profound answers and reflection. And that can be like a really good leader that will ask great questions, has ability to use that to really help unlock that wisdom for people. So that's kind of one of my reflections on questions from the last couple of weeks. So, but yeah, you have any final thoughts here, Adam, on this topic of kind of introducing questions and in our communication?
Yeah, I think we go over this to just kind of getting in our minds like that asking good questions is incredibly important because it's how you, again, acquire answers and wisdom. And that those unlock the solutions to your problems. So by answering good questions, you kind of can solve your problems. So they're very, very important. And I just want to do more reflection on, what questions or like, how can I like figure out almost like a process that gets me to ask better questions.
Yeah. Start to basically learn more about that and dial that in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And so, well, to all of our listeners back home, and just like, I just want us to imagine for a second, like take a second where you're at and just pause. Like imagine just like a tribe of men who are leaders that are asking profound questions instead of the stupid, unprofound questions. And just imagine the impact of, the wisdom and the answers and problem solving that we could have in our community, and just, united by this hunger for greatness. And so, yeah, share this podcast with a friend and start talking to people about questions and get this topic flowing, because I think it's a good one. And, so you can really, embrace danger and become great. But you've been listening to the Dangerous Man podcast. Join us next time. Until then,
Claim your greatness
and stay dangerous.